And when I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
And if we're talking tight ends and we're going into round 2, maybe round 3, give me Ian Thomas, please. Let's just do the damn thing.
Just based on giving his overall ability. Again, I like his arm. I think he can make every throw.
The pick at number 12 is in.
Welcome to Cover One, the NFL Draft Podcast. I am Russell Brown, and joining me today, my Lloyd Christmas to my Harry Dunn, my boy Luke Inman of ZoneCoverage.com. Luke, how we doing, my man?
Oh, Harry, old buddy, old pal. Always good to come and jump back on with you, collaborate a little bit more. What do we got? 2 days, 3 days left before the draft itself. It's Christmas, birthday, Super Bowl, 4th of July. Roll them all up and throw that in one weekend. This is by far my favorite time of the year.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I love baseball season, don't get me wrong, but over that 3-day span, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I could give two you-know-whats about the Detroit Tigers and anything they do. I could not care. But yes, it's Christmas. It's here. We are doing this thing, and we're going to talk about the Vikings a little bit, some surprises for the first round, just spinning some NFL draft stuff. You guys can follow Luke on Twitter at Luke_Spinman. And of course, check out his work over at ZoneCoverage.com. You guys, this guy's got the voice of Fergie and Jesus put together, meant for radio, but also at the same time, the written content, the video content, it's there. You can check it out again on Twitter at Luke_Spinman, at ZoneCoverage.com. Do that stuff. Smash the follow button. Find them on Twitter. Do all that stuff. It's great stuff. So, Luke, let's talk Vikings. That's your team. That's what you cover all the time, 24/7. This is a team that's got some needs. Let's start with their needs. What's their biggest need?
Yeah, no doubt, man. First of all, always love coming on with you, like I mentioned, and collaborating with you. Appreciate the kind words. I think when you look at the Minnesota Vikings, dude, 2017 seems like a long time ago now. They had 13-3, magical run with Case Keenum, quarterback carousel. It was going to be Teddy. It was going to be Bradford. All of a sudden, Case Keenum's the guy that leads you to 13-3. I think the biggest thing from that fun season to what we saw last year with the Vikes at 9-7, new quarterback, big paycheck, Kirk Cousins. But I thought Cousins, when I watched all the Washington tape, was a guy that moved around a lot more in the pocket and created some plays with his feet, some improv plays that flat out I just didn't see at all in 2018. So whether he was a little bit more scared or prone of the fumbling, which he did have some issues with through those first 3 or 4 games, I'm telling you, that last half of the season, he was a statue in that pocket. So that's okay. I mean, when you think of Cousins, you don't think Michael Vick-esque type of mobility or movement skills. You think pure pocket guy, really dangerous though, ultra accurate, can make some big plays, can burn your defense if he's got time in the pocket. Did not have a clean pocket. And again, going back to 2017, Case Keenum, I think, masked a lot of I'll just say offensive line deficiencies that the Vikings had. And I don't think fans and maybe even coaches alike really realized how bad that O-line was in 2017, despite how well Case Keenum kind of made some plays around it. And then in 2018, it was kind of like this harsh comeback to reality. This offensive line is one of the worst in the entire league, if not the worst. So there's some building blocks. Brian O'Neill was a great rookie at right tackle. Yeah. That was a huge surprise. It's scary to even think if they hadn't hit on him, how much worse this offensive line could have been. Pat Elflein is another young building block there, but even he regressed after a good 2017 rookie campaign. So I think when you're talking about the Vikings' biggest needs, there's no bigger need, and I'll even say probably biggest 2 needs is filling in these 2 guard positions. So the only thing that they really did to add and help aid this offensive line was they signed Josh Klein from Tennessee. He's not a game changer. He's not a guy that, hopefully he's going to come in and you expect to start. Hopefully he's just a backup swing guy, a role player, but he may end up being, depending on what they do in the draft, he may end up being their starting guard, which, again, knowing that was their biggest weakness heading into the offseason, it's kind of disappointing knowing that they didn't really address that. In fact, the only thing they were able to do was retain Anthony Barr in kind of a dramatic whirlwind situation there when everybody thought he was going to the Jets, ends up staying with the Vikings for less money. But I'm telling you that, Russ, the fact that, sure, he stayed for some less money, he's still chewing up a huge chunk of the cap, though, and that basically hindered them from having enough money to go make a splash for the offensive line. So offensive line, specifically guard, yeah, you could draft a tackle like Andre Dillard and move Riley Reif inside if you wanted. Yeah. I'm not big on that move, though, because, Russ, there's more question marks than once you make a move. Now you're moving Riley Reif inside the guard where he's never played or hasn't played since his Iowa days at the collegiate Big Ten. But I don't like that. I'd rather just draft two pure guards or maybe a center like Garrett Bradbury, which we'll get into in a little bit, and then maybe another guard in rounds 2 or 3 at pick 50 or 81. Bottom line, though, Russ, biggest need, offensive line, and probably offensive line, dude. It's just, the defense is set. They've built that. They've dumped a ton of assets into that since Mike Zimmer got here in 2014, and it worked. Like, dude, you can't knock that. It worked. He turned literally the 32nd ranked defense under Leslie Frazier into a top 5 defense the last few years, pending on what category you're looking at. So the defense is Super Bowl ready now, and we knew that, and it's been ready the past 2-3 years. The offense, you finally go get your quarterback. Hey, they had what they thought a franchise quarterback in Teddy Bridgewater before the knee blew up. And really, it was on pace, and the blueprint was just the way you draw it up when you look at teams like the Rams and the Eagles when they won the Super Bowl run. Quarterbacks on the rookie
contract. Yep.
That's what they had, man. They had it with Teddy, and they thought that was going to be the guy. Let's go build around him, and the rest. Knee blows up. They're forced to go spend real money on a free agent guy like Kirk Cousins. They got to protect the investment. They got to give a pure pocket guy like Cousins a pure pocket. And we see other guys, and we joke about like Eli Manning because it's easy to joke about. But when he had a good pocket, when he had good protection up front, Eli was dangerous. I think Cousins is a similar situation, the fact that if you don't give him the time, though, to step up into a clean pocket and then give him the time to scan the field, you're just not going to get your money's worth out of him. And ultimately, you're going to waste a Super Bowl defense. So offensive line, again, whether you want to tackle first or a guard, whatever, you got to get a few young players in there. And luckily, Russ, this is the draft. If you need offensive linemen and defensive linemen, if you need to add in the trenches, this is a great draft to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is a group where it wouldn't surprise me. And I'll ask you this as well, is I think this is an offensive line that can certainly get better within this draft, but also I think this is a draft where the Vikings could certainly double dip in the first and the second round and really go pick 18, pick 50, or maybe pick 18 and pick 81, however they would want to go about it. But if it's talking guards, I certainly think, or guard center, however you want to, swing it, but 2 players at 2 of those spots, I think they could very well double dip at the interior offensive line. But I know there's fans out there that don't like that. How would you feel about that? I think that's a big need, obviously. I agree with you. So double dipping, it makes a lot of sense.
Well, think about this, too. Offensive line, which is a position that the Vikes and Rick Spielman have never invested in early outside of like Matt Khalil in 2012 with the 3rd pick. They just have not had a long draft history or pedigree investing in this position. Hey, it's not fun. It's not sexy. It's not the flashy playmakers, but you have to – it's a copycat league. Mm-hmm. You have to go build a good offensive line. And again, when I say copycat league, I mean typically in the past 5, 6, 7 years, you've seen teams that are getting what they pay for typically when they're investing early picks in the offensive line. I remember back at first round, the end of round 1, the Dallas Cowboys selected Travis Frederick I almost spit my drink out, and I was laughing like, what a dumb pick. Like, just not fun, boring. Yeah, he's a solid player, but that's not going to do much. That's not going to change your franchise. They shut me up quick a few years later once they built the rest of that offensive line. Ryan Kelly, Alabama, Colts, pick 18, 2016?
Yeah.
Boring, not fun, not flashy. I'm sitting there going, you got Andrew Luck, build a good defense around him. What are you doing? But 2-3 years later, here we are. Shut me up. One of the best offensive lines in the entire league. Now, yeah, they obviously drafted Quentin Nelson, Braden Smith, but I'm just saying it's not a fun or sexy position. But when you're talking about not only the Vikings' biggest needs, protecting Kirk Cousins and that big investment, and then just really their only weak spot left is offensive line. I am more than okay if they wanted to double dip at 18 and 50, if they wanted to go 18 and 81, the third rounder. It's not only like that'd be fun or cool if they did. I think they need to, because again, they did not address, outside of Josh Klein, their biggest needs. Again, 2 offensive linemen, probably if you're getting into it, 2 guards specifically. Hey, if you want Bradbury or Eric McCoy, I think you can move former Remington Award winner Pat Elflein over to guard and he'll be fine, right? But I think by far, if they don't get 2 offensive linemen in the first 3 picks, I think they're doing it wrong, because, again, depending on who's there, depending on if they trade and move back and get some extra picks, maybe that might give them more flexibility. Right. But 2 offensive linemen need to be the picks in the first 3 selections, the first 3 rounds, I should say. And, again, luckily, there should be some really good talent available, unlike some past years where it's been a little wishy-washy. You know, what was it, 2017? Only 2 O-linemen in the first round. It was 2 tackles, Garrett Bowles and Ryan Ramczyk, you know? So
exactly.
You never know what you're going to get. So I feel like, all in all, knowing that they're likely going to have to double dip in the first 3 picks, this is the draft to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, you know, you talk about this is the draft to do it. I want to talk about some of the players that maybe you think fit what they're looking to do. And obviously we'll go down the list with other questions. But I will say, you got me thinking about my team, the Detroit Lions, of what they potentially might do. We've heard some things, some rumblings today that they might be one of the dark horses for a quarterback, which I think is asinine. But I've always wanted defense for a long time. I thought, okay, if Ed Oliver is there, absolutely. Or if not, maybe Montez Sweat or whatever.
Yeah.
But now I'm thinking, you know what? They've talked about the defensive talent in this draft, how deep it is, the depth. And now I'm thinking, okay, maybe the Lions are going to go after an offensive lineman like a Jonah Williams or something, just simply because of the teams that are behind them in this draft. Green Bay, they could use an offensive lineman. Minnesota certainly could use an offensive lineman. So take their guys. So it just kind of got me thinking, and I'm getting all evil like Game of Thrones, Cersei style here. So
wicked, yeah.
I know, but let's talk about the depth of the class and just realistically some players that maybe you like for them at maybe 18 or 50 or 81. So let's start at the first round. I mean, depending on how the board plays out, of course, we'll know who's there on Thursday, but
I think
going into this, who are some guys you like?
Yeah, I think realistically, Russ, though, we can probably take off a few names. Juwan Taylor should be long gone. You mentioned Jonah Williams, man. I know there was a lot of smoke this last month and who's going to rise, who's going to fall, but I think once we get to Thursday night, Jonah Williams has to be a top 10, top 12 pick. He's just so clean of a prospect. And yeah, I heard there was even some rumors that the Detroit Lions were even – really taking a hard look at him, and you would know more about that than me. But I think Juwan Taylor, Jonah Williams, and probably Cody Ford, whether you like him at guard or tackle, I think those 3 guys will be gone. Even if Ford was there, he doesn't match up great. I mean, he's a great player. So how cute do you want to get with Gary Kubiak's zone scheme, who in general, you're looking for more athletes, more lateral movers, guys who can really get from the first to second level with a quick first step. Those 2 guys that have kind of been projected and mocked and talked about the most at 18. For simplicity's sake, I'll give you the 2 guys, Garrett Bradbury and Andre Dillard. Both for different reasons, both different positions, but both make a lot of sense athletically for what they want to do. Dillard, I'll start with him just real quick. He scares me a lot more because as great as he was against the pass, PFF, in fact, I think has him as the number one pass blocking tackle in the country. He worries me for two reasons. One, first of all, they didn't run a lot. We all know that 70-30 ratio or something like that. So he doesn't have a ton of reps in the run game. Not the end of the world, just scares me a little bit. Number two, I worry about, as good as athletically he is, I worry about that stout, strong base, that anchor, if you will. And the final thing with that is that if you draft him at left tackle, that means you're moving Reef to guard. And I mentioned it at the top. Now all of a sudden I got two question marks, kind of two unknowns at a position where the goal was going into the offseason to figure out and answer all the question marks. And now you're creating another question mark. Dillard is a guy I know a lot of people love. And again, athletically fits perfect what Gary Kubiak's going to want to do. But this is a Super Bowl ready roster now. It's a piece or two away. And I just think Dillard may be the best of the bunch, but it may take him a year or two. Right. Again, doesn't have a lot of reps in the run game. I just think that there's going to be a learning curve with him. Again, could be the best of the bunch, but how long is it going to take? Vikings need a guy that's like plug and play day one. It's the cliche, stereotypical thing, but they need a guy who can come in day one. And I think Garrett Bradbury would be that guy. Also fits the athletic profile. He's not just a skinny, small athlete, though. He put up 34 bench reps, just worth, right, against his peers. And I think that, again, I think Elflein is best suited at center. But you know what? If that's our biggest problem, that we got to move Elflein, again, a former Remington Award winner, a stud at guard at Ohio State, if we got to move him, it's not the worst problem to have. I'd rather move Elflein to guard than to move Riley Reef to guard and have a bigger question mark at left tackle. But those are the two big names being flown around a lot at 18. Hey, Dalton Reisner, certainly in the discussion for sure. I know you and I are both high on him. Can't wait to hear your interview and sit down with him here in a little bit. Jonah Williams, Juwan Taylor, Cody Ford, I'm assuming will be gone. And then, you can talk about Chris Lindstrom at 18. I just think that Rick Spielman's all about value. He knows value when he sees it. I just think if he wants to punch Lindstrom, he's going to do everything he can to at least try to move back 5 spots, 6, 7 spots with somebody and get a little bit better value. But Bradbury or Dillard seem to be the guys at 18. I lean Bradbury. Lindstrom wouldn't be a horrible pick by any means. He's a plug-and-play day one guy. Yeah. When you talk about getting down to pick 50, now again you're probably looking at the second tier of guys, and two guys that keep jumping out to me, Michael Dieter and Drew Samia. Talked to both about them at length for pick 50. Listen, both of them may be a little bit high at pick 50. Again, they seem like guys that kind of rank from anywhere from pick 50 to 70. So it seems like, yes, in a perfect world, if you want the best value, maybe you can move back a little bit, but everybody always wants to trade back. Right. It's not that easy. You got to have a team that's willing to trade up with you, which, again, is not always as easy as it sounds. Dieter from Wisconsin, you got to love the versatility and the game experience. 54 straight starts, 16 or something at tackle, 14 at center, 14 at guard, something along those lines. Vikes really love versatility. Dieter being able to line up at multiple spots, they might really love him at pick 50. Drew Samia, I've loved him from the get-go when we talked to him down at the Senior Bowl, and he seems like an athletic mover that, again, laterally, pulling, things like that. I think both those guys, Gary Kubiak, may really love. Again, at pick 50, when you're talking about the second-tier guys, is Eric McCoy still going to be there? Is Chris Lindstrom still going to be there at 50? Probably not. Elton Jenkins, a little too high for me at 50, but still's got a lot of those attributes that you want, those athletic, moving attributes. That's what you're looking for Gary Kubiak's zone scheme. And again, dude, how much is he going to is he going to be all in on that athletic zone scheme? I don't know. Cody Ford. Is Cody Ford just too good of a player to pass up, even though he's more of a power gap scheme guy? Probably. I would say yes. He's too good to pass up. Right. Knowing that you have to get 2 good guys at the offensive line in this draft. if Cody Ford's sitting there, man, I think you got to pull the trigger. He's just that.
Yeah, and I think it puts a lot of different guys. I mean, like we've talked about, there's a lot of depth here, and I like that you bring up Michael Dieter, Drew Samia. I like those guys a lot. I like Samia a lot more than Dieter, just simply because it's just I like guys that play with that nasty side. Dieter, yes. I don't think does. And the biggest
he's got that baby face and that small, just that quiet demeanor. Not what you want from your old lineman, but he's a technician, man. He just gets the job done. But I'm with you on both those. Yeah, Samia definitely brings a little bit more energy and punch to it, and I think all those Oklahoma boys do. Same with Ben Powers.
Right, and then you jump into there's other guys too, like Eric McCoy. There's I like that you brought up Jenkins, and then you've got Nate Davis out of Charlotte. So I think there's a lot of guys on their radar, and I wouldn't be surprised if probably that first pick, that sure pick, would be like a Bradbury or a Dillard just to fit that athletic profile. But then when you get to 50 or 81, maybe they roll the dice a little bit and just get a guy that could plug and play. And maybe that would be a Michael Dieter with the experience and the versatility, which is coveted in today's NFL. So I'm excited to see what they do. Ultimately, what do you think that they'll do? Do you think they'll sit there? Do you think the opportunity to trade back happens? I mean, if they did trade back, and you mentioned that, who do you think they would trade back with?
Well, I've thought about this in depth, and this sounds ironic because the team that I'm about to fling out ultimately is going to draft an offensive tackle. So you're sitting there going, well, why would you do that then if you need the same position? But the Texans have 2 second-round picks. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if moving back 5 spots from 18 to 23 is enough to garnish a second-round pick to get that in return. But even if they got a third-round pick, the point is the Texans have ammo to move around if they want. Yeah. If they get down and Andre Dillard's on the board – and all the other top-tier tackles are gone, Jonah and Jawan and Ford. They may, and they're not loving Greg Little or Yannick just at 23. They may say, hey, last top-tier guy's there. We know the Vikings will probably be interested in him, if not take them all together. Maybe we move back or we move up 5 spots. We got the extra second to play with. Maybe they give up a third to the Vikes, and move up 5 spots. Whatever. Something like that is an option, something to think about anyways. More times than not, though, when you're moving back or a team's trading up, it's usually for a quarterback. Mm-hmm. So if the Giants end up passing twice on a quarterback, maybe there's a team sitting there going, well, if Daniel Jones makes it past the Giants at 17, then maybe we'll move up and go get our guy, something like that. So you never know. Trading is just so tough to predict. But I do think that the Vikes will make a serious play. And I've told a lot of people about this, kind of hung my brand on this, that I think Trey Waynes is going to be traded draft weekend. And I don't know if that means Thursday night, round 1. I don't know if that means early before the draft starts on day 2. But I've heard rumblings that they already had offers months ago. They turned them down because they were trying to hold out for more. I'm looking at teams like the Raiders with all those extra picks. Listen, Mike Mayock called a lot of Vikings preseason games over the last 5 years. He knows this roster up and down. He keeps close tabs with general manager Rick Spielman and Mike Zimmer. He knows and is comfortable with these players. He knows everything about Trey Waynes. He's got 4 early picks, 4 in the top 36, top 35, something like that.
4 in the top 35.
If you think Byron Murphy and Greedy Williams are your guys and they're there and they punch it, go for it. But if those guys are gone and they don't love DeAndre Baker or the rest of this class, giving up pick 35 for Trey Waynes, a bona fide starter, a great number 2 cornerback.
Do you think that would be what it is, a second-round pick to get him?
Well, I think an early 2 is what they're holding out for, if not a late 1. Remember, the Chiefs, I think, also have extra picks. They need a corner. I don't think the Vikes would do it for their late second, but maybe, again, I don't know, crazy stuff happens on draft week. Maybe they're holding out for the late 1 of the Chiefs. But realistically, yes, early 2. Then all of a sudden, it's like, Russ, now we don't need to take Bradbury or Lindstrom or Dillard at 18. What if Cleveland Farrell's there? What if Christian Wilkins is there? What if Ed Oliver's there? What if Devin Bush is there? All of a sudden, if you get that 1 extra pick for Trey Waynes, the options are seemingly endless all of a sudden, just like that, because then it's like you start looking at, and Rick Spielman does this very well. They're not just looking and drafting for 2019. I know I mentioned the Super Bowl windows now, but they're always looking at 2020 and 2021. And I just don't know how much longer Everson Griffin's going to be on the books. It's getting a little long in the tooth. I feel pretty confident saying this, that they were close, if he didn't restructure, to thinking about maybe just letting him go, or at least we heard the trade rumors
right.
that they were trying to push him and get rid of him. It's a big contract, and if you're not going to produce, he had some off the field issues last year with the mental stuff, and then he just never really looked the same Everson that we were used to. So I can't pay all that money if you're not going to produce at that level. If a guy like Cleveland Farrell's still there, again, they lost Sheldon Richardson and never really got too much back. They did sign Shamar Stephen back from Seattle. They love him, but how good is he compared to Sheldon? Probably not on that same level. If Christian Wilkins is sitting there, God, do I love him. That'd be a fun little combo to get in the rotation. So, whether they trade Waynes or not, I still think there's some options there at 18 that Zimmer might just say, dude, he's too good to pass up.
Right.
And we got to pull it. We can get Drew Samia and Michael Dieter and Elton Jenkins, those guys at 50 and 81. That's worst case scenario. If they get an early 2 for Trey Waynes, if that actually comes to fruition, the options all of a sudden are again, they multiply. And I think at 18, they're going to look a lot harder at a defensive player, or just a tight, maybe Hawkinson's there, maybe Noah Fant.
Well, and I was going to bring this up.
Number 3, Reese. It doesn't need to be a number 3 receiver. It just needs to be a number 3 target. If that comes in the form of a tight end or a pass-catching running back out of the backfield, that's fine. I'm fine with that. It doesn't need to be a receiver. There's 2 stud tight ends that we all love in Noah Fant and T.J. Hawkinson. Those would be tough to turn down if they're staring at you in the face. And I don't know. They could both go top 10. They could both be sitting there at 18. I don't know how that's all going to shake out.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. Like, they obviously could be there. We don't exactly know how it's going to happen. I personally don't think that they will be. And maybe Fant could be.
Maybe Fant could be.
But now that you throw in the Trey Waynes thing, it's got me thinking in a way like, okay, these guys could very well get an additional second. Like the Giants, the Patriots, they both have 12 first round, or not 12 first round picks, but they have 12 draft picks as a whole.
Wow. Yeah, dude. Patriots are loaded in those middle rounds again. The Chiefs have 2 seconds. Eagles have 2 seconds.
Patriots have 2 seconds. I mean, there's
Texans have 2 seconds. Yeah.
So something could happen along those lines. So I could totally see that. And I know the Giants specifically. I mean, they forfeit a third because of the supplemental draft, but they've got an additional third now. So I'm curious if that's like the worst case, because they need a defensive back really bad. And I think that would be a pretty good fit. So it got me thinking, okay, let's say they get the extra pick. Could you see them potentially trade up? Because we've heard the rumblings of the last few months of the Lions potentially trading down. Now, they won't trade. We know that. In division, not going to happen.
Right.
But if you think about this, Sean McDermott, if I remember correctly, of the Buffalo Bills and Brandon Beane, these guys have never held their original spot in the first round.
Okay.
They've traded either back, they've traded forward. And they traded from 10 to 27 to get Trey White 2 years back.
That's right.
And they passed on Patrick Mahomes. This past year, they traded up to get Josh Allen. They had 2 first rounders back to back. So they made some moves and made some adjustments. Obviously, they could be in play to go from maybe 9 to 18. Would you be okay if all goes right, or even if not, if the Vikings moved up and went from 18 to 9 and maybe jumped in front of Green Bay to potentially get a Hawkinson or a Fant?
Man, I think, yeah, dude, lot of different variables in what you kind of just broke down. I think the number one thing first, they can't move up that far unless they trade Trey Waynes, unless they get that early second and get some more ammo. They just don't have enough ammo. They already don't have a 5th. They got an extra 6th and 7th, but that's just not enough ammo to really do much damage with. So they'd have to get let's just say again, an early second for Waynes. Rick Spielman always tries to end up with 10 picks. So he's usually not the one trading up. He's usually the one trading back. But if they were to do that, let's just say in this scenario, I think it has to be, if you're moving up all the way to 9 in the top 10, it has to be for a Jonah Williams type or a TJ Hawkinson. I mean, Hawk seems like a little bit more of a variable, a little bit more of a wild card. I personally think he's that good.
Yeah.
I think the top 5 player in this class. I think he's going to be like plug and play. I mean, it's just going to be, it's like Quentin Nelson was. It's like too easy. It's like boring now.
Right.
Like days before the draft, like we get it. Like we just want to see him become a Pro Bowler his rookie year now because we've hyped it up so much. But Hawk, I don't think they would do that for Hawk. I think it would have to be an offensive lineman like Jonah. Maybe Juwan Taylor slips a little bit and they're like, dude, we never thought he'd get out of the top 5. Or maybe they're just in love with like a Cody Ford. But I think the O-line class is deep enough to where Rick, and you can look at his draft history, like he just doesn't move up a ton unless he's already got his original need and he's got extra picks to play with. Like when they moved up for Cordell Patterson with the Patriots at the end of round 1 in 2013, well, they had already drafted Xavier Rhodes and Sharif Floyd. Like they had already filled up their needs. And now it's like, well, let's just go take a shot on a wild card, boom or bust guy, because if he doesn't pan, well, we already got 2 studs. I don't see it. I don't think they'll have enough ammo is why, even with the second-round pick. But if they did, I think it would have to be, as fun as Hawkinson's to talk about, I think it'd have to be for like a Jonah Williams type. Yeah. Plug and play, done deal. Plug him in. I don't know if you want to start him at left tackle and move Reef inside, or if you want to start him at guard and see what happens there. But that would just be like pencil him in next 8 years. Plug and play.
Right.
And what an improvement that would be for that offensive line too, man.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's interesting just simply because the teams that are in front of them, Green Bay could go offensive line, Detroit could go offensive line, Buffalo maybe, you have Carolina there, you have the Giants at 17, depending on what they do with 6. Miami, they don't have a right tackle right now. They pick 13th. So there's a lot of different variables there, obviously, and that's just why I kind of thought about it. Maybe it could happen. So we'll obviously see, but since we're on the topic of trades, and I kind of want to bring this thing together and get you out of here. But trade predictions, surprises for Thursday. Do you see anything or hearing anything as far as any moves that could be done or made?
Yeah, I always look, first of all, I mean, this draft, every draft's got its own kind of fingerprint. It's unique kind of characteristics, where it's strong, where it's weak, good depth, you name it. How many blue chip, can't miss guys are at the top. But this draft, when I think 2019 draft, it's all about what's the deal with Kyler Murray. Is he going to go 1 to the Cardinals? If he doesn't go to the Cardinals, is he still going to go 1 to another team that's trading up to go get him? Who is that? And then if the Cardinals do punch it, where's Josh Rosen going? Because Josh Rosen, I mean,
where do you think he's going?
Dude, a year ago at this time, it's like, dude, he's one of the best. If depending on who you talk to, he was the best prospect out of all of them.
Right.
I'm looking at teams with, again, multiple picks. I think if I'm the Cardinals GM, I'm trying to get a late 1 because I really think he's worth it. And I think other teams realize, dude, he's got a year under his belt now, so you don't have to go through the whole rookie thing with him. He's got to learn a new playbook now and everything else. But whatever team probably trades for him is going to let him sit, which is awesome, I think. I'm looking at, I don't know if it's cliche or what, but we talked about the Patriots have all those extra picks. Dude, they got a lot of ammo to work with. If the Cardinals want, again, like one of their second-round picks, I would do that in a heartbeat if I was the Patriots. Think he fits their scheme, too. Pure pocket guy, can learn behind Brady, blah, blah, blah. I just think that's almost like too easy to guess, take a stab at, I feel like. Who else has early picks or multiple picks that needs a quarterback? Well, there's not a lot. We mentioned the Chiefs got 2 seconds. They're good.
I think the Giants make the most sense. It sounds like Washington's out on him, but I think the Giants make a ton of sense. They can make a ton of – they make a ton of sense with 6, 17. You could get whatever you want there, but at 30 – what do they have, 35 or 30?
Yeah, like 34, 35, something like that, yes.
Something like that. I mean, if you have that – give that up. Give that to Arizona. Take Josh Rosen. Even if you gave up 37 and like 102, who gives a damn? Like, give that up and get those guys or get that guy and build around it. And
That's a great point, dude. That's a good one right there. I think the number one thing you got to remember is that you have to remember, as far as Rosen's value, first of all, he was a top 10 lock last year. Okay, he went 12, whatever. But look at the other quarterbacks if you're in the market that you could get ultimately for a second-round pick. None of them are come close to the upside that Josh Rosen gives you. Not even close. So this is like a rare, goofy situation. It's kind of like the Brett Favre deal. Like, I mean, I wasn't around covering the league or anything, but it's like Favre was drafted in, round 2, and then kind of gets flipped for another second round of the year, the next year. I feel like you'll never be able to find this good of value on a young kind of blue chip quarterback prospect than you will right now with Josh Rosen. You just won't. Like, if you like Daniel Jones, you're probably going to have to take him in round 1, maybe. I don't know. I would much rather, wouldn't you rather have Rosen for a second?
I would take Rosen over any.
Right?
Yeah, I would take Rosen over any quarterback in this group. I mean, Rosen was my top quarterback last year. He was
there you go. Like, somebody's going to get him for dirt cheap, dude. I don't know who it's going to be. Somebody, and that's going to be one of my biggest winners when I'm writing up the big winners of the draft after the weekend. Whoever ends up trading for Rosen for a second rounder, if that's what it ends up being, I think is just such a great move to get that kid in there and start learning your playbook and let him learn for a year. Because, dude, he could be in a quarterback-driven league. If you don't have one, you got to keep trying to get one.
Exactly.
It'd be, dude, for a second-round pick, man. I just think the value, it just screams great value. So, and again, though, Cardinals are punching Kyler Murray. Like, do we know that for sure? Like, that's
Todd McShay ccame out and said 99.9% sure it's Kyler Murray. That's
Todd.
Mel. Todd. Yeah.
Flying under the radar a little bit here. Iced coffee, safe, durable, spill free. I think, yeah, dude, it's tough to predict those trades for sure. I think whoever gets Josh Rosen for a second, great value, great move for that team. Vikings specifically, again, I think trading Trey Waynes has been on the forefront of that front office's mind. I truly, if you believe any of these rumors, they already were offered some early or mid-seconds. They said we're going to hold off and wait until draft weekend and try to bump up that driving price a little bit. And I think, again, that tells me, if that's true, that there was multiple teams in the in kind of the sweepstakes for Trey Waynes a little bit. If they can get that extra second, man, all of a sudden O-line is not as bad as they need it, does not have to be the pick at 18. If Noah Fant's there, Ed Oliver, Christian Wilkins, Cleveland Farrell, Devin Bush, just to name a few, all of a sudden those guys are in play.
Yeah.
It's tough to predict any other trades. I look at teams with multiple picks. So like I mentioned, you mentioned a great one with the Giants. That makes a ton of sense. Dude, Packers, they got how much ammo? 12, 30, and 44? Like, if you wanted to – they don't even need to, though. That, like, sitting at 12, they're going to get somebody great, Hawkinson or a Burns or Devin.
Right.
Somebody's going to fall in their lap. So they don't even need to move up or package anything up to go get somebody. I was listening to the Draft Network mock draft, and they had somebody, some lady, I forget her name, but she covers the Packers. She was picking for the Packers at 30. Guess who she took? He was still sitting there.
Drew Lock.
Yes. Yes, dude. And I liked it, man. I mean, dude,
it makes sense.
Thing. You can sit, dude, if he sits there for 2-3 years and then you end up flipping him for a second again, that's totally fine, dude. That's good. That's a good thing, dude.
Yeah, well, look, man, I cannot wait. It is going to be insane. We got into so much stuff right here just in the last 35, 40 minutes. It was phenomenal, Luke. Where can we find you on Twitter?
Yeah, just on Twitter, it's at Luke_Spinman. Again, pumping out a lot of draft content, obviously, this past few weeks. This week, hitting it hard. Got a couple more great podcasts that it's going to launch. You can check out on Zone Coverage. That's zonecoverage.com. And again, if you're honing in on any Viking stuff or specifically offensive line, that's where I put a lot of my time and effort and energy in these last few weeks. Just launched a 12-part video series on offensive line prospects, kind of breaking down those top 12 guys from Jawan Taylors, Jonah Williams, Garrett Bradbury's, to the Michael Dieters and the Drew Samiyas, just to give you a snapshot of what you're getting, pros and cons. So check it out on Twitter at Luke_Spinman. All the draft work, though, including our draft guide, is up on Zone Coverage. That's zonecoverage.com.
Guys, you have to check him out. It is phenomenal stuff. He is truly, again, like I mentioned, the Lloyd Christmas to my Harry Dunn. He's phenomenal. It's great stuff all the time. Luke, thanks again, man. I'm hoping I don't want to see it. I want you guys to tank the draft because I'm a Lions fan, but I'm rooting for you.
Right.
I'm rooting for you and your happiness. And if it's Garrett Bradbury, that's a home run pick. So cannot wait to see what happens on Thursday. Again, guys, find him on Twitter, smash the follow button. And of course, Luke, you take care, be easy, have fun down there covering the Vikings for the draft. And until next time, this is Cover One, the NFL Draft Podcast.